So in this video, we're going to be looking at the file system. As you can see, we are in a command line environment, and I'm going to SSH to one of the school's computers and type in my password. And the first thing that you have to understand is when you connect to a server, you are sitting somewhere in the file system. Now, a lot of us don't have a lot of experience with the file system other than maybe what you've seen in looking in your My Documents folder or something like that. But the file system is an integral part of how a computer works. I think the easiest way to explain it is to show you a few examples. The first command that I'm going to show you is something that tells you what directory you're sitting in the file system, and that is pwd. It means present working directory. So if I type in this command, pwd, it tells me this long string, but this is basically a file system that I'm sitting in. The first slash represents the root of the file system. If you're used to Windows, you would think of it as perhaps your C drive or D drive or something else. The root of the file system is the base, I would say, of the drive that you're on. Everything after that, the first thing, so in this case, AFS, is a subdirectory within that. In Windows, we use the word folders and subfolders, but in Linux, it's common to call them directories and subdirectories. So the first slash is the root. The AFS, after that, is a subdirectory that's called AFS. Then we have a separator, which is, of course, another slash. We have another directory called nd.edu, and yes, you can use a dot in directory names. Another separator. Here's where ours will be different. Mine says user 1. Yours probably says a different number. User 2, user 4, user 10, something like that. Another separator, and then my username. In this case, cpennycoo. Yours will, of course, be your username. This is a directory that the school has set up that is yours. That is, when you connect, it automatically puts you in this directory. That's the context of all the commands that you're going to be running, is that you are in this directory. Now, we can see the contents of the directory by another command, a command called ls, which lists the contents of the directory. And you'll see I have a lot of different things in there, a lot of different colors. As I scroll up, I've had this account for several years, and a lot of different projects and TA assignments and such as that. But these are the list of files and directories. In this case, the directories are blue, and there are different zip files. In this case, are red, and all of those different types of files, they give them different colors, and the colors can mean different things. It doesn't really matter that much. The main thing is that you understand that this is the contents of this directory. I can actually go into one of these directories. For example, let's look at the Euler, E-U-L-E-R, which is just a small directory where I've been working on projects, programming challenges. And I can do that by typing cd. And if I go into Euler, E-U-L-E-R, in this case on my directory there, and now type in pwd, you see that there was the long path that you saw earlier, AFS, nd.edu, user1, cpennycoo, and now there's a slash EULER, Euler. If I also now type ls, you'll see a different list of, in this case, there's only one subdirectory under that, 041. I can go into that directory, cd 041, and ls, and you'll see, oh, okay, those are files that I've typed in at some point. Now comes an interesting thing. What if I want to move backwards? How do I get out of this? Well, there's a couple different things I can do. If I just want to go to the preceding directory, I can type in cd space and then 2 periods, dot and then dot. This is what's called a relative path. That is, I'm from where I am, that is, I'm in afs/nd.edu/user1/cpennycu/euler/041. If I type in cd space dot dot, it says move up to the previous directory. So in this case, when I run the command and now do pwd, you see I'm no longer in the 041 subdirectory, but I'm in the one that's higher up. If I run this again, cd space dot dot, and type in pwd, you see I'm now one higher up. And yes, I can continue doing this. User 1. And I can keep moving up and up and up until I get to the root directory. And of course, if I try to do it here, it can't go any higher. So, so 2 dots mean the previous directory. It's a relative path, as I said, mean relative to where I am executing the command. Now, what if I want to get back to my home directory? Because that's where all of my files are, all the homeworks that I've worked on and all of the things that I've written, they're in my home directory. Well, there's actually a couple different ways that we can do that. The first way is just to type cd and hit enter. And now if I type in pwd, you'll see that I'm back in my home directory. Okay, that's a nice shortcut. Let's go back to the root directory, and I can do that by cd and a slash. This is what's called if earlier the 2 dots was a relative directory, a relative path, this is an absolute path. That is, I'm telling it to go directly to the home directory. And again, pwd will show you that I'm in the home directory. And if I type in ls, you'll see the subdirectories that are underneath the home directory. Of course, one of those being the AFS, which is where we started at a moment ago. How else can I get to my home directory? Well, I can type cd space and then I can type in the tilde. And here, pwd will show you that I'm back in my home directory. Why are there 2 different ways? Well, sometimes you need to reference a path. And for example, pwd, ls, and I have one called www. Let's go into that one. www, ls, there's nothing in there. I'm going to create a file and we'll just call it foo. Now if I do ls, there's a file there called foo. The command I use to create the file, it creates an empty file, but it's just called touch. And we'll be talking more about that at a later time. But for right now, just realize that it created a file called foo under the www directory. Now if I go back to my home directory, so I'm just going to type cd because that's the short way of doing it from here, and ls, I see the listing of all the directories. But if I want to see the listing inside the www directory, I could say ls www, and it will list everything that's in the www directory. Well, what if I'm not in my home directory though? Let's go back to the root. So now if I type in pwd, you see that I'm in the root directory. If I now try to type in ls www, it's going to say, I can't do it, there's no such file or directory. So how do I tell it that I want to see what's inside www in my home directory? That's why we have the tilde. So I could do ls space tilde slash www. And you see that I'm able to indicate by the tilde, meaning my home directory, then the slash www, I'm able to say which directory I want to be in. So the ls command lets us list what's in the directory. But it's actually a little bit more powerful than that. Not just the name, so we can find out information about the files that are in there. So let me just make it easier, go back to my home directory, or I could have actually typed in cd tilde/www and gotten their directory directly, and you'll see that it's /afs/nd.edu/user1/cpenicu/www. Okay, so I'm there, and if I type in ls, you see that there's a file there called foo. If I do ls-l, that means list in a long format information. And you'll see that there's a lot more information here. We will talk about this more at a later time, but the main thing, you see the 0, that's actually the file size. Like I said, it creates an empty file. And you'll see the date. I can see when it was created. And I can see who created it. That's the cpenicu there. So ls-l is it gives you a long listing. That is, it gives you more information about the files there. If I go to my home directory, again cd, and do an ls-l, you're going to see a lot of information scroll past, but you can see some of these files are huge. That's the number of bytes, and some of them are very small. This one's 127 bytes long. And you can see when they were made. So some of these were way back in 2013, some of them are very recent. And so, yeah, that's the ls-l command. And the command I just typed actually to clear the screen is called clear. So anyway, so we talked about how we can see what directory that we're in. That's pwd. We talked about how we can change directories with the cd command. And we talked about the double dot, which is the parent directory, to move up a directory. And then we talked about the tilde, meaning the home directory. Now there's one other little shortcut, like the double dot means the previous and the tilde means the home directory. There's one other that you need to know about, although it probably won't make as much sense to you at the moment. It will when we get into programming, but I want to go ahead and mention it now. And that is the single dot, the single period. And if I, as you saw earlier, so which directory I'm in, pwd, I'm in my home directory. And I could do ls and see everything in my home directory. Or I could do ls www and see what's in the www directory. Well, the single dot represents the current directory. So if I typed in ls period, that means list everything in the current directory. Again, you may say, why do we need this? And we don't need it for the ls command. However, in the future, when we're writing our own programs and we want to say execute a certain program, and I want it to be the program that I have just written that's in this directory that I'm in, that's when we will use the single period. So if I wanted to say, and this is just, again, we don't need it for the ls, but to show how it works, if I were to say ls a single period slash www, that's ls this directory slash www. Again, it's not necessary for the ls command, but it will be necessary later on for when we begin executing programs that we have written ourselves. The last thing I want to mention is something that makes working with a command line a lot easier, and it's not just in dealing with a file system, but it's called tab completion. Tab completion is basically where you start typing something and you hit the tab key. And if the command line can guess what you mean by that, it will fill it in for you. So for example, I have only one thing that starts with www. So if I type in ls and hit a W and hit tab, oh, excuse me, I actually had two things. That's why I shouldn't do this live. I had two things that begin with the W. One is workspace and the other is www. When I hit tab, the first time it didn't do anything, which lets me know it doesn't quite know what to do. I hit tab a second time and it gave me the two choices. And now if I wanted to go into workspace, I could, or list everything in workspace, I could hit O and then tab again. And since at that point there's only one thing beginning with WO, when I hit tab, it filled in the rest of it for me. Or two W's in a row and tab. will complete that. So a good place that you would use the tab completion is, for example, going into the course directory where you will be turning in your homework in your Dropbox, for example. And I can show you one from a previous course that I had done. So I could change directory and go into the slash. So from the root directory /AFS/ and it's nd.edu, but all I have to type in is like the nd and hit tab, and it will complete that part of the path for me. If I hit tab again, it says there's 119 possibilities. I want to show them all? No, but I happen to know it starts off with course, and this was the fall of 2016, and then 125 possibilities. I believe it was CSE / and then it's going to be a number and 20301, yeah, something like that. And so the tab completion, I don't have to remember everything exactly. The tab completion just helps me get through things quickly, and I can see, once I've started typing, I can see how that narrows down my choices. And I can go there, pwd, as you can see now I'm in that directory, and of course cd to get back to my home directory. So tab completion is going to help you out in traversing the file system, and we will talk more about how we can begin using these with other commands. How do we manipulate files? How do we see what's inside of files, create new files, and such as that in the upcoming videos. So, thank you.